The word legend is used often in this business, but rarely is it more fitting than for my guest at this time. An iconic figure in the world of professional wrestling, he has seen dizzying heights and devastating lows. He has triumphed, often over the most adverse of circumstances. Undoubtedly one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, his journey is now available for fans to share in his long-awaited autobiography. He is the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. He is Bret the Hitman Hart. Well, first of all, congratulations on the book. It had been a work in progress for some time. How did you find the process of writing it and reliving all those years?
It was like a catharsis. It was like a real therapy for me to relive it. That's how I wrote it. I wrote it like I relived the whole thing. Just I wrote it sort of one bit at a time.
Yeah.
Started way back from my Stampede days, and then once I got to the WWF or WWE period, I had I had a little recorder that I carried with me since 1985, which is when I first started the WWF. And during that period, through all of my career, I started making these little entries about what I did that night, who I was with, and where we went,
yeah,
what happened in the dressing room. So I know a lot of wrestlers have written books, but they didn't do what I did. They didn't really have the facts right. Sometimes they got the wrong place, the wrong time, wrong people in the room, or just stuff that never happened in their books. I think a lot of times they mean well. I think that's how it happened, but you get 300 days a year, and 20 years, you could get pretty mixed up and pretty complicated and try to remember it all.
For sure.
In my case, it's all there. It's all one day at a time, and it's all the truth.
I interviewed Chris Jericho recently, and he said that he thought that your book and his book were probably the last of their kind in terms of, just what you said there and the journey that you both took as wrestlers. Would you say that's a fair statement?
I don't know. I couldn't begin to imagine where the next books will come. I mean, most of the wrestling books have been crap. I liked Chris's book. It seemed pretty interesting, and I really enjoyed his book better than most of them anyway. Mick Foley, I always thought wrote a really good book that sort of captured his life and times in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I think my book, the history and the sort of I don't know that Chris Jericho or any other wrestler had the life that I had growing up with it. I don't think they had the history that I had. I don't think anyone had the family that I had.
For sure.
Anyone had the tragedies that I had.
Yeah.
So I think tying all that up into my story has been, really sort of a special achievement anyway.
For sure. What kind of feedback have you had from people that you were in the business with who've read the book?
Well, so far I haven't heard from anybody, not one person. I haven't heard from one person in my own family.
Oh, really?
I'm in the dark on that. I think there's a lot of slow readers. It's a big fat book. I mean, it's not a kid's book. It's not a book that that someone's going to pick up and read in a couple hours. It's a long, deep, heavy book that goes almost 600 pages. It's packed from beginning to end with everything you can imagine.
But it's a very compelling read, difficult to put down.
I think so. I think it's a monumental effort to explain to people what wrestling is and was. And I think that for your casual fans, they're going to absolutely adore my book. I mean, it'll give them all the sort of stuff they always kind of wanted to know. And at the same time, this book's not written for wrestling fans at all. Like your listeners that might be listening that are not wrestling fans,
right?
They're the ones that will really enjoy the book the most. It's written for someone that's not a big fan, like a huge wrestling sort of, they can't get enough of it kind of thing. This is for someone that has a bit of an understanding of it. They watch it on TV and they know who some of the characters are, and they kind of wonder what the real wrestling is, how the business really works, and how the personalities really mesh together.
Well, it's a bit like the documentary, really. I mean, you didn't have to be a wrestling fan to get caught up in the drama and enjoy that.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly. I think it's. I've been lucky that I've done most of the things I've really put my passion into. Like the documentary was something that I really threw caution to the wind and just let them film whatever they wanted, have their own. Basically they could say what they wanted and do what they wanted with that documentary. I never had any control of what was in that documentary or the production of it or anything like that. It was just the vehicle.
Right.
It was a really well done, classy vehicle, and I'm very proud of that documentary for the honesty that it has.
For sure.
My DVD that I did, I thought was first rate. I thought it was the whole the WWF or WWE at the time was really good with me and opened the vaults, and we really kind of put our heads together in a funny way because there was such bad blood between us from so long that we actually did put everything to the side and really worked for about 3 weeks on the DVD. I had a gun to my head to get it out in time.
Yeah.
I had about 15 days to get it down there, and I did. We went down there and we put our heads together, and people see it, they go, it must take months to do that. But I mean, that was 3 weeks of, in the middle of all this writing that I'm doing, I did for this book.
Yeah.
It's tough to get the DVD done, but in the end, I stand by it. So I'm really proud of that DVD, and I'm hoping that maybe with WWE we can do 1 or 2 more.
Just getting back to the book for a second, it seems to be very much an attempt to set the record straight on many things. So parts of it must have been difficult for you to recount. Parts of it must have been difficult to write.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of really tough, difficult, emotional things to write about from my brother Owen's death, stroke to just countless losses that I had, friends and family in that book, and just to put people in perspective, really let people see or know what it was like in Montreal and what was going through. I always have people ask me, what was going through your mind when you were standing in the ring looking out at the crowd? And
your face did it all.
I wanted to, dispel a little bit of the, like Shawn Michaels, the born-again Christian, said that Vince took a dive, that I never even hit him, that Vince just sort of took a punch and laid down, pretending he was hurt, which is such rubbish, it's rubbish. The shiner and black eye that Vince had the next day did look too pretend to me, and I know the broken bones in my hands weren't too pretend.
Yeah, I bet.
Pretty high-powered impact on the moment of drilling this boss of yours in the jaw, having Shawn Michaels and everybody in the room. Shawn cried all the way through that whole episode in the dressing room with Vince. But he doesn't write about any of that in his book. And I thought, for me, I want to put it in perspective. I want people to see this little sniveling coward.
You don't think he's really had his moment of truth?
Well, for a Christian, he seems to enjoy lying quite a bit.
Yeah.
Really buy into that so much. It would be the first Christian to lie so much. But
yeah.
I think that I wanted to let people see people like him for what they really were, and then at the same time see someone like Undertaker for being sort of the man that he is. Sort of see that not all of us are a bunch of rat stuff or have no principles, but that some of us are really tight and really close. And Steve Austin. I think people, when they read my book, they start to see the sort of love that we have for one another as brothers in battle kind of thing, and that we have a lot of respect for each other's personas or characters. I had a lot of respect for Steve Austin, but I also had a lot of respect for Steve Austin's Stone Cold, like the wrestling persona. I knew what he was trying to achieve, and your ultimate goal is to try to help him achieve that. Whereas then you have someone like Shawn Michaels and Hunter Helmsley that are just sort of, just kind of creepy backstabbers that are just trying to stab their way to the top. And ultimately, in a lot of ways, I guess they achieve what they set out to do. I know most people I talk to can't stand watching wrestling anymore. Nobody watches it. Everyone turns it on and kind of flips through it, and there's a desperate longing for the way it used to be. If I was WWF, I'd just start showing reruns.
Yeah.
They're so bad. Like the storylines are the worst problem, and I think that's Hunter and his Stephanie McMahon that put their heads together every week and come up with these storylines. But the storylines are so just ridiculous, you know, that I find it really hard to enjoy the wrestling. And unfortunately, and maybe that's not necessarily Sean Hunter's fault or Stephanie's fault, but I find that, unfortunately, all the tragedy and death, like when Chris Benoit was one of my last real favorites, and that whenever he was on, I would sit and watch. And, you know, I just found that...
Oh, he was just such a great storyteller in the ring.
He was really a hard-working, a good wrestler to perform, you know, with him. And I just feel that when he had that horrible tragedy, that just kind of broke my heart. Maybe the last sort of the last little bit of room that I had in my heart for wrestling kind of seemed to get smothered after that. And I don't really...
I think a lot of people feel the same way after the Benoit tragedy. I mean, it just seemed, I just seemed like when Eddie Guerrero died, Chris Benoit left himself behind.
Yeah, I think that you may find over time that because of how Eddie Guerrero died, that it was a weight that affected Chris Benoit from the day that that happened to the point that, I don't know, it was 3 years maybe since Eddie died? 3 or 4 years?
Yeah, 2 years ago, Eddie died.
I don't think Chris was ever the same after that. I know that he seemed to withdraw, and I didn't talk to him that often. And when I did, he seemed very, he didn't seem to have that life in his voice anymore when he talked about what he was doing. He didn't seem to have the excitement. And the last match I watched Chris Benoit ever have, which was about 2 or 3 weeks before he died, which was on, I don't know, where they had the draft. I know that he ended up losing a match and getting drafted to ECW. But I remember watching the match, and I was like I said, I was enjoying it because I really enjoyed watching Chris, and I hadn't seen him in a little while. But I could tell by the look on just the expression on his face that he was going through the motions, and he wasn't happy about what he was doing, and he lost in the middle of the ring, and he needed to get out of the ring and walk back to the dressing room. And I knew then, I knew I'd see him a few weeks later in Calgary because they were having a TV taping there. So I kind of said, I'll give a talk to him and see if I tell him not to get too down. He looks down, looks pumped out about how things are going for him. And 3 weeks later, everything was over for him. That horrible murder, suicide thing had all taken place. I never did get to talk to him again. Maybe that's why I kind of feel like I don't have any desire to watch it anymore. And I don't really have any real desire to watch any of the other wrestlers on the show. I find that they seem to pick the wrong ones to push. It seems like the show's more about, I don't know, soap opera and the girls. I think the best wrestlers in wrestling today are the girls. I mean, I find at least the girls wrestle, work hard. Whereas a lot of the guys that are wrestling seem to be all trying to imitate Edge. It seems like about 30 guys that look and act like Edge. It's all going up there and do the same thing, you know. I hate to be Edge because he's got lots of competition now.
Yeah. Just going back to your book for a sec, recounting your SummerSlam match with Davey Boy Smith, that certainly made for a gripping read. Can you tell us why you see that match, a match in which you had to carry your opponent, as better than matches in which you worked with somebody of, equal skill?
Well, it was a real testimony. Like, it was a real challenge. It was not an easy thing to do. And for most people that watched that match, you would never know that Davey was having a harder time than he was. There's an expression, carrying somebody. Well, I would think of all the matches where I had to carry somebody. That was the one I carried someone the farthest. It was the hardest. It was most important.
Yeah.
But I think the overall story, in the end, it's like we work together. I've always said wrestling sometimes it's more like figure skating.
Yeah.
What happened for our figure skating competition is that we had one of us was not ready for the big skate. But at the end, we still got the gold medal and we're on the podium kind of thing. And so I know that it was above and beyond the Call of Duty in a lot of ways. And I did that for the love of wrestling, not for anybody else. And I did it for Davey, and I cared about Davey, and I wanted this to be the greatest match of all time. And I put a lot of thought and energy into the match. And it's just a shame putting the honesty in that, I think it lets you give you someone like a reader the insight as to see how someone carries a wrestler. I mean, I can show you, if I watch the match back, there's so many points and times in the match where it's me doing all the thinking, all the work, and Davey's just thanking God that I'm there. That was a beautiful thing for me to be part of it, to pull that off for him, the fans, the business, and myself.
Yeah.
And then there's other matches. Like I had other great matches. Like the match with Shawn Michaels, the Iron Man match, was a really great match. And Shawn was a great wrestler in a lot of ways.
That was a hell of a match. It's my favorite.
Yeah, I think that one's hard pressed. If you had to ask me the hardest match that I ever worked, I think that I'd have to say the Iron Man match was the hardest one I ever had. But in difference, in contrast to Davey, the two guys, even though one of them sort of messed up, were working together. And Shawn wasn't so much a great match of two guys working together to try to make each other. It was a case of two separate people trying to outshine each other. And we did. We did both carried our end of it, and we both picked it up, made ourselves look pretty good, and carried the match. But we weren't working together like I would be with a Davey Boy or a Kurt Hennig or
right.
where you're working together and you're building something. It's like figure skating again.
Yeah.
But with Shawn, it was like two figure skaters that are trying to outshine each other.
Right.
So I think that in writing about that, I try to put that in perspective to people.
Yeah, yeah. As we speak, we're just hours out from the 2007 Survivor Series. What's going through your mind 10 years on from Montreal?
Well, it's kind of surreal still. Like I have people ask me about that and how much they sort of look at it now. I don't even want to talk about it. It's such a black day, such a dark moment in my life, kind of thing. But I've always been really proud of how I held true to my own feelings, and I always thought I handled myself really well that day.
Yeah.
I've heard someone say a few days ago that someone asked Hunter Helmsley what, something like that could have happened to him and Shawn.
And he said we wouldn't be that stupid.
He said he wasn't that stupid.
Yeah, I saw that.
I thought, well, maybe I was. Yeah, maybe I was stupid. Maybe I was stupid to believe a man that had acted like my father and treated me like had done so much for me. It's the same guy that's his father-in-law today. So to take somebody at his word and believe him, and give him as your word in return. If that's stupid, then I guess I'm stupid, But you should, understand that, all I did was to tell the truth and be honest. And his father-in-law was pretty downright dishonest. And, was a total liar, and they could be proud of that. Maybe that makes him smart to be a liar. I don't know. In the end, I wake up in the morning, I look in the mirror, I see a guy that. I have nothing hanging off my conscience that I feel bad about. I feel like in the end that it was a heroic moment for me because I was right and I was telling the truth and I was there. I did everything that I would have done for my father for this that day.
Yeah.
I came there to be the pro that I've always been.
Yeah.
And you deal with some people that are very unscrupulous and very dishonest. And Shawn Michaels even wrote his own book that his big problem was simply the fact that I was being paid more than him.
Yeah, I remember that.
To decide that somebody's being paid more than you, who's been in the business longer, he's a couple of years older than you, he's the highest paid guy in the company, and he's paid his dues and he's being paid more. I don't know how you can take exception to that and say, I want to see if I can push this guy out, get him out of, ruin him, get him out of here, and take over everything. I think in the end, when you look at how sort of corrupt and slimy the Hunter Helmsley and Vince and Shawn and that whole group, how wickedly sort of deceiving and corrupt they were, that, I think you can look at me and I don't know that if I was ever, I don't know how you'd rate my sort of heroism and throughout my career kind of thing, because a lot of it's sort of fabricated with this, TV. But in the end that day, I lived up to being the hero that I always pretended to be. Punching Vince McMahon in the jaw was a really brilliant thing to do because it made people respect me forever.
Yeah. We were talking a minute ago about the storylines in WWE and how most of them are just crap now. Do you think that they'll mark the occasion in any way today by doing something tasteless?
Oh, let's not give it too much credit for being tasteful.
Yeah.
I expect it to be some kind of, maybe they have a midget and a sharpshooter or something like that. I don't know.
So I take it you won't be watching?
No.
No.
It's the last thing that I'll be watching.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. We were talking before also about the documentary Wrestling with Shadows, and it remains just one of the most compelling documentaries ever. How different do you think that Montreal would have been seen if Paul J hadn't been there to document how it all went down?
No one would even care today.
Right.
No one would have cared whatsoever.
Yeah.
The whole idea that day was to sweep it all out the back door. They were going to screw me and just leave me to, and no one would even know about it. No one was ever supposed to know. They all jump out, run back to the dressing room, Earl.
Yeah.
Go home the next day, I don't see anybody ever again. They start their show Monday, and they just paint over me and rewrite the stories without me and talk about me being a...
Basically just shit all over your legacy.
Yeah, they already had... I was erased. They were just going to erase me that day, and no one would ever know quite. I might show up a couple months later and say, you know what happened, this is what happened. But I mean, after a couple months, that story would have died down. I don't think anyone took into account that the documentary would be as well done as it was. And that came about a year later, so that sort of just ended up backing up everything I said. But despite that, even that, aside from that, I was on the internet the next day, and all kinds of newspapers and people covered the story and explained what happened. And the story took on a life of its own, became this huge, controversial story where people weren't sure if it was pretend or if it was a storyline. And I think the more it got so much interest that it became a big story. And I don't think the WWF at the time knew how to control that or how to minimize that. And by the night when they did the show, the wrestlers were just so ready to walk out of Raw and not do the show. They were worried about full-on mutiny of all their talent. And I think they started to realize right off the bat that this was going to be a bigger problem than they accounted for. They came up with all kinds of different stories and reasons why they did what they did, and tried to paint out that I was unreasonable and unprofessional, all those kind of things. But in the end, I think the documentary really, like within 1 year, is still a fresh issue. And the documentary set the record straight for permanent.
Yeah.
Forever.
Have you, just sort of changing tack, have you seen much of TNA's product?
Yeah, I have.
And what are your thoughts on it?
I love a lot of the wrestling. I don't like all the storyline stuff, like the soap opera. It seems like they're a competition.
Yeah.
And they try to go the same route. And I'm not so big on that. But I understand that they're working really hard and they're trying really hard to be a serious company to be reckoned with, kind of thing. But I love Kurt Angle. He's one of the only guys that I really wish I could have worked with one time, just to have worked with him. I have a lot of respect for his ring ability. But I hate the ring. I can't stand that ring.
The 6 sides.
Yeah. I like it. If I could wrestle when I was younger and I could join that company, I think I would probably not join the companies just for the voltage. Just a little bit worse ring than the WCW ring.
Oh, really? What was bad about the WCW ring?
Well, no, it's not a real ring with ropes like the WWE ring or WWF ring.
Right.
My dad's ring, they had there was a big ring. My dad's ring was a 20-foot ring.
Okay.
And it had real ropes. Like when you run into the ropes. But this TNA ring and the WCW ring was not a real they weren't real ropes. They were just props. Like they were just pretend. They were steel cables covered up with big, huge, thick hose. So when you ran into the ropes, there was no give. Like you couldn't actually bounce off the ropes. Actually, when you ran into the ropes, you stopped all your momentum and had to start running. It'd be like running into a wall and then off the wall. I just hated it. And the ropes were really low. Like I remember you could almost, if you hit the ropes funny, you could flip over the top rope and land on the floor. And I wasn't the biggest guy. So I don't know how guys like Hulk and some of these giants that they had WCW could even use those ropes.
Yeah.
It looked great to step over top, like Kevin Nash used to climb over the top rope like he was stepping over the bottom rope. But it looks good. It looks, guys like Rey Mysterio would climb right up to the top. Those kind of rings dive all the way. They can run off the top like walking a tightrope. But there's no rope. It's just a big steel cable. For me, that really loved when I got thrown into the ropes. I mean, I started running so fast. I got where I was hitting those ropes so fast, and with such excitement and action. You ran to the ropes, and you got the clothesline, and hit the other ropes, and you came off. There was a lot of movement, and using the ropes to propel yourself was a really important part of my matches. And I hate the rings that kill the speed and kill the excitement of a match, and that's what the TNA ring does, and that's what the WCW ring was all about.
Right.
Small criticism, but for a guy that was an artist, it was important.
Yeah, definitely. What are your thoughts on the rumoured new Hart Foundation in WWE?
Well, I don't know. I don't really. I had my personal thoughts on it was that they were all really good and really talented, and but I thought they all should stand on their own merit.
Mm.
Teddy Hart, who's kind of a loose cannon, sort of a, for lack of a better word, a bit of a wild man. I was worried that he would kind of screw things up for the other family members because he was so different and radical compared to them. But in the end, I think I know Teddy's got a lot of talent. I thought that something could be done with all of them, and it could be the Hart Foundation. I think it might be a really interesting concept, but I think that they should establish themselves. Each one should establish their own character and persona on their own.
Yeah.
And maybe somewhere down the road they can band together, and then it would mean more rather than putting them together cold.
Yeah.
Hard thoughts, which is all of a sudden they're walking to make big pair of shoes. That's not easy to do.
Yeah.
I think they need to put a little more thought into how they form together.
Out of the guys that you've worked with, in the past and who are still wrestling, whose book would you be most keen to read? You said that most of the books that come out now are crap, and this is true because they must be written by WWE. But if there could be another book that was told the way you told your story, whose book would you want to read?
I would want to read Vince McMahon's book.
Oh, really?
But I'd hope that he'd have somebody honest. I hope he would be honest in the book, like that. But I imagine Vince has got a really interesting story just to tell on all kinds of different levels. Vince has always been quite a character, so he's got a lot of, I'm sure he's got a lot of skeletons in his closet. He's got a lot of kinds of great accomplishments in his closet too. I think he's kind of a hidden. Most of what people know about Vince McMahon is that he's this kind of businessman that do anything it takes to win. That's true, but there's a lot of, I'm sure there's a lot of good things to be said about Vince McMahon too. Even like charitable work.
Mm.
My feelings for Vince aren't so harsh as they are sometimes about like Hunter and Sean.
Yeah.
But Vince, I think I always had a lot of respect for him in a lot of ways, and I feel a bit of a, if say Montreal had never happened, I feel that I would have been probably right today. I'd probably be sitting right beside him, doing everything I could to help him with his company, be a real company. I was a guy that really loved his company, loved his business, and wanted to give him. I was grateful for everything that he did for me, and I wanted to always be a contributor. But so my feelings for Vince and WWF have never really changed. I'm always going to be grateful for what he did for me. I just don't understand why he was so I don't know, just sort of programmed to. I think it was what they were trying to do to me in Survivor Series was really just to be as malicious and hurtful as possible. Try to be just ruin me as much as possible, and have it was like their own private joke in the end. They were just kind of getting now really stuck into Bret Hart.
Well, it just seemed like you went to WCW with nothing, and that's what they intended to happen.
Yeah, and I think I don't know, I believe that Shawn and Hunter were a big part of that. You know, I can't change what happened, and I try to move on, but I feel bad that it happened because I think I had a lot more to contribute. And
yeah.
I think wrestling would be a better business today if I'd had someone involved. You know, I thought a lot of my genius that I had for wrestling it's like I'm tapped. It'll never come out.
Mm.
I think I had a lot of great stuff that I could still be doing for other wrestlers today, like creating ideas and concepts and matches that I don't see anywhere on the show today.
Right. What went through your mind when Vince told you that you would be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame? How did that make you feel?
Well, when I had that conversation, I was about 5 days into my stroke, and I was really maybe going through my most difficult challenge in my life. It was really, for lack of a better word, I was really down.
Mm.
He called me, and I didn't know he would call me, but and I did write about that in my book. It was almost like I don't know, when he called me, I was like, kind of put the hostility down and talked man to man first. I appreciated his kindness at the time, and he said a lot. He gave me a nice pep talk, told me, that I was a fighter and that I would beat this thing. And he had no doubt, to hang in there. It was nice of him to call. I've always given him a second gave him a second chance in some ways after that.
Mm.
Appreciate the fact that he took the time to call me when so many people did. I didn't get a lot of calls, but no one really cared. And I had guys like Hogan and Flair bash me in their books that came out around the same time. It kind of felt like I was getting kicked while I was down. But Vince, when we talked, I told him, I said, I don't want to be erased. I don't want to be forgotten. I said, I really had some great wrestling matches for you, and I would love to, do that. We had always talked about doing an anthology, like a sort of a bunch of, at the time it was the videotapes of my greatest matches. I think we were talking about a 5-volume set to start with the Hart Foundation, build up into the end of my career. With a lot of things like that. And I talked to him on the phone, and he said that anytime I wanted that, we could do all that. Not to worry about it. That it was as good as done. Just let me know when I was up for it. And, so we ended up doing that. I'm grateful for that, even though the original concept of that DVD was to tear me to pieces. And then I brought up the conversation I had with him when I was in the hospital. And I said, you promised me a fitting tribute. I'm not going to do anything called Screws. We're going to highlight all the stuff that happened in Montreal and make money off that, that whole thing. So in that conversation, we agreed to do the DVD somewhere down the road. Or that's where we talked about that concept anyways. And I always told myself if they ever asked me to do the Hall of Fame, that I felt that I had a right to be remembered. I had a right to go back. And if it ever happened, if they ever invited me, I would go. That was before I had the stroke. It was after Survivor Series that I thought about that. Mm. And when he asked me about it that day on the phone, I said I would. That's something I would like to do, but right now I don't have the heart for it. I don't think I can even. I was in the hospital, so I was pretty down and out. So anyway, we had that talk, and it was all like a couple of years later when I had recovered enough. I was, the Hall of Fame thing came up, and I thought that it was a good way for me to find closure, to do something for my fans again, to give the fans that goodbye. I had a lot of fans ask me when I'm coming back, you just say goodbye. I don't want to break it to them, but I say goodbye at the Hall of Fame. That was my final sort of WWF appearance.
How did it feel being at the event and seeing all the old faces and,
I think I was a little nervous. I was a little on edge, and I felt I felt pressured to deliver a really good speech, talk, and I wanted to give people the reassurances that I was okay and didn't need to worry about me so much anymore, and I wasn't so bitter about everything, and I could laugh about stuff and enjoy the good memories rather than reflect on the bad. But at the same time, I wish I could have had. It's one of those things where I think you wish you could have done a second take. The first one was a good practice. The second one would have been really good. Because I'm not so it wasn't so easy for me to walk out there in front of that people and that crowd of people and the ovation and all that was very moving for me, and it affects my emotions and all those kind of things. I just think if I had one practice, even just something I could have done maybe the day before, instead of kids to school or something, but something to prepare me more for it. I might have done better. I always thought I could have done a better job. But all in all, at the same time, I know that I did a pretty good job on it. Sometimes you're your own worst critic. In the end, I'm happy with what I did, what I said.
I think it really meant a lot to your fans that you did come out, and I thought the whole speech was very real, and definitely you could sense the emotion that you were feeling at the time. Yeah,
I think it was good. It was good for me to do it. It was good for the fans, but I think that'll be the last of that kind of thing.
So with that in mind, what is the next chapter in the Bret Hart story?
The next chapter is to put my book into film.
Really? Oh, really?
I'd like to see that done with a sort of Sopranos kind of episodic kind of. I'd like to do, I'd like to actually approach it the same way as something like Sopranos. I don't think it's a story that can be filmed in a movie. I don't think there's enough time. I think you really need, in order to appreciate my story, you have to follow it like the way it's written. And I think if you follow it the way it's written, you'll actually really enjoy it. And I think on film, it can be a great project, and I'd like to be part of that. And that'll be my next challenge. I've done a book now. I've accomplished a lot of things in my life, but I'd like to maybe consider going back to film school. And if I put this book into some kind of film, like I'm hoping a series, I'd like to be a big part of that. I'd like to be on and be part of the cast and probably wasn't when I acted or anything like that. But I'd like to be really involved in it and put as much time and energy into that as I have the book and everything else. But I want people to always remember that when I put my name on something or put my heart into something, then I'm going to give them something that's quality product. Like my book, I think is. I could have written my book, had it out 5 years ago, and rushed it out, put out a sort of a puff piece like a lot of other guys, or just sort of summarized a lot of big events in my life, just sort of put it out there. But I didn't want to do that. I knew I had a better story. I took my time, and despite the pressure from publishers and my manager and people saying we need it now. I remember my manager back in 2000 telling me we need to have this book finished in 3 months, and we need it right now because the books are red hot and they're selling like crazy. Mick Foley's book had just come out. And I told him, I said, I'm not going to have this book done for at least 5 years. If you can forget about it, and leave me alone so I can write it.
Yeah.
And I did it that way, and maybe if this book had been done 5 years ago, it might have sold more. Maybe I could have hired someone to work with me on it, a ghostwriter like everyone else did. I could have cashed in on it a while ago, but instead, it's not about the money. It never has been.
Right.
I said, I want to do this book. I don't care if it sells one copy and no one buys it and everyone hates it. At least I can say, this is my book. I wrote it myself. This is what happened. If you want to know, this is. You can judge me by my how honest I am as to whether you believe my version of things. So anyway, I just really I did everything I could to give fans a real quality product, something that could. I think people and wrestlers, not just people that are fans, but I think wrestlers, I think a lot of wrestlers will read my book and you'll bring back a million memories for them of their own experiences, memories about wrestlers that they miss and long for the same way I do. I think my book is a brilliant sort of walk through the history of it as I remember it. And I think a lot of wrestlers will enjoy my book for the same stories that the fans will. I think they'll remember it all and enjoy it all.
Well, Bret, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I can't believe it's gone on this long. Usually when I'm talking to somebody, they say, oh, it's 20 minutes, I'm going now. So thanks very much for a great interview. I just really enjoyed talking to you. And the book is fantastic. It's a highly recommended read.
Well, when they asked me about doing your show or your interview, I always had a lot of great memories when I was in New Zealand for the short times I was there, and I always loved the fact that I had a lot of fans there.
A lot of very loyal fans in New Zealand. And when you came out here with the WWA tour and gave the talk, that meant a lot to a lot of people.
Well, I know I wrote about it in my book where I had a Maori gave me a stone, a healing stone on a little string that he gave me. So it was blessed by the high chief of all the Maoris. He wanted me to wear it for my recovery. Well, I still wear it now. I've never taken it off, and I have great memories of down there, and I just wish I could have been there more often through my career. But it's my pleasure to talk to you and hopefully touch base with some of my fans down there again. I don't know when I'll get back there, but I know that I'm coming. I'll come back to New Zealand anytime I have a chance. I'd like to go. Maybe I live in Hawaii right now. I'm spending most of the winters in Hawaii.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that maybe sometime this spring I might just jump on a plane and fly down to Melbourne and then skip over to New Zealand for maybe a couple of days, just bike rides and stuff like that. Just have a really nice time.
Once again, thanks very much. I really appreciate your time.